Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us today. My name's Aline Sigler. I'm with Provider Outreach and Education. Today, I'm joined by Mary Muko. She's serving as my co-host today. So I want to thank her for her assistance. You're seeing her add details and information to the chat for me. She's also going to monitor that chat for me and be my eyes behind the scenes there. I'm also joined by Shakura Harris, one of the newest members of the Provider Outreach and Education team. So we are glad that you've joined us today. Purpose of today's webinar, as you can see here with our title, is to take a look at navigation or movement within direct data entry, which we lovingly refer to as DDE, because of course we have to have an acronym. It's part of a series of webinars that we're doing that are focusing on navigating and using direct data entry. Of course, we'd love to have you join us for all of the webinars, but if it doesn't fit into your schedule, they will all be recorded. They will be available as an encore. So if you're not able to join us live, or if you want to pass this information on to someone else that you work with that could benefit, we can make sure that it's available for everyone who's interested in learning more about DDE. Our time together today is going to include reviewing the definition of the terms FIS and DDE. FIS is the Fiscal Intermediary Standard System. And then we're going to be discussing navigation between screens and within the pages of direct data entry. Along the way, we're going to share some tips and tricks that will hopefully help you learn more about DDE, what it can do, and what you can do with it. As we're learning a new task or a new topic, sometimes it's a little overwhelming as far as, okay, I have this and that's great, but what do I do with it? And then some of those things that you're going to learn about it as you work with it, we have the experience of being in your shoes too. And so sharing some of those tips that might not be outlined in black and white in the manual, things that can be time savers for you, we want to make sure that you're aware of those. So as we begin with an overview of what FIS and DDE are, I realize that this might be a refresher or not new news to some of you, but for others, you indicated when you registered that you were brand new and wanting to learn everything that there was. And so I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't at least define these terms so that you know what we're even talking about. The Fiscal Intermediary Standard System, that's what FIS is. That's the processing system that CMS decided that all Part A contractors were going to use. So that's used for all inpatient Part A claims that are billed on a UB04. And then also those UB04 claims that come in that are considered Part A charges, but payment for them comes out of the Part B bucket. So those Part B facility or institutional claims, those outpatient services or non-patient lab, those types of things. So FIS is a standard system. So all contractors who process Part A claims have to use it. We don't have a choice. And then direct data entry is a FIS application that gives you direct access to your claims. You can enter claims, correct claims, and then you can also do other certain claims processing things such as inquiries. We have another course that we're going to be doing that is focused on the inquiries menu. And if you're not sure what the inquiries menu is, I do invite you to attend that webinar or look for that encore depending on when you're hearing this information. DDE is a valuable tool for providers who use batch submissions to transmit their claims to Medicare. And I can tell you that that is the majority of providers that bill to WPS. They download their claims in batches electronically but then they opt to have DDE to work on their claims, to look at their claims, to watch them through the system, to correct them if necessary. You do have the choice of getting direct data entry, because then you can actually work on your claims, but it is not required. It's a business decision that's made by your organization or your facility or your billing office. You're going to be working with vendors, so there will be a cost for working with those vendors. So, there's a lot of things in Medicare that we tell you you don't have a choice about. This you do have a choice about, and it might not be you directly who makes that decision, but someone at your organization either will or has. So as we begin looking at moving around inside DDE, before you even know what the functions all mean, we need to know what to do on our keyboard. So we're going to start with keyboard commands. So with some of the common keyboard commands and their functions with respect to navigating the DDE system, I know that your keyboard may look different than the picture that I have here, but it's more about what the keyboard commands do than their location. So throughout the PowerPoint, if you haven't looked at it yet, I do have items on the keyboard circled or highlighted to draw your attention to them, but just know that your keyboard might not look exactly the same. So we're going to start with your arrow keys. The arrow keys are what allows you to move one character at a time in any direction within a field, up, down, right, or left. So that's pretty self-explanatory, but it is something that you will utilize as you work with DDE. Next is the tab key. Now your tab key is important because it's going to move forward between fields. And this is what is recommended to go to the next required field based on the type of bill of the claim that you're entering or correcting. If you've worked with the UB04, if you've worked in other billing software systems, not every field or form locator on the UB04 is utilized for every type of bill, and some of them aren't even used for Medicare at all. UB literally stands for uniform billing, so it's not just a WPS or even a Medicare form. It's used for commercial payers. It's used for group health insurances. It's used for all different kinds of medical billing. And so that type of bill field is going to determine what fields you can key in. And so using that tab key is going to move you to the next available field for the type of bill that you're entering, inpatient versus outpatient, whatever the case may be. Now, some keyboards might be equipped with a back tab key. If yours is not, like the example that I have here, what you'll do is press and hold the shift key while you press the tab key to move backwards between fields. So just to reiterate what I stated a moment ago, but to give you more of a why, we do strongly suggest using the tab key to move between fields rather than the space bar, arrow keys, or manually placing the cursor with your mouse. And this might seem like kind of strange advice, but DDE will see a space as a character, and it could cause errors. So if you're using your space bar to move or erase things, you might get an error or your keyboard might lock because DDE sees that space as a character. I hope that makes sense to you. If not, it will when you try to do it, I guess. Now your end key, for the same reason that we just talked about, when you're removing or erasing characters, we suggest using the end key rather than the backspace and space bar. The backspace and space bar, using them to clear fields or to move between fields is not recommended. Because if you attempt to type in an invalid field position, your keyboard may lock, and you might see one of these icons down here in the lower left corner of your screen. You might see that. If you attempt to type in one of those fields, you might get those. So what you can do to unlock your keyboard and reset your session is to press the escape key, the ESC key, and then use your tab key to move to your cursor to the next valid field. I don't have an example of it, but I do want to pause here and add that if you see a symbol that looks like a clock or an hourglass, or you press a key and it seems like nothing is happening, wait a second or two. The system might be processing a request or thinking, if you will. What's the other word I'm trying to think of? Buffering. So you just want to wait a second or two for the system to catch up and that symbol to disappear before you press any more keys. The same goes if you experience system slowness or you're briefly interrupted. Your internet connection goes away for a moment. You know, no matter how much we want to, repeatedly pressing the button doesn't make our elevator get here any faster. So we just want to have patience and pause for a second, because it can actually cause errors if you hit an invalid key out of frustration or impatience. I'd like to say I've never done that, but I have. Can actually cause errors, or it can cause you to lose your work and kick you out of the system if it gets confused. So practice the pause. So now let's look at the program function keys. So our program function keys, or maybe you just call them function keys, depending on your particular keyboard setup. You might have F keys or PF keys. My particular personal one has the F ones, and I never really knew they had a name, program function keys. The use of these keys directs the action to be taken within DDE. So this would be for things such as moving within screens or a claim. DDE explains what function keys are available for use at the bottom of each screen. And we'll take a look at that in just a moment. So you'll know what your options are based on what page or screen you are on within DDE. So as we go through these and define them, the first one is F1, and this is your help function. From a claims inquiry or a claims correction screen, and don't worry if you don't know what that is yet, F1 takes you to a description, or what we call a narrative, of the reason code or the edit code. If you press F1 while the cursor is anywhere on the screen, you're going to receive an explanation of the reason code, or the first reason code if your claim has more than one. If we go back to this prior screen here for a moment, so this screen, this claim, excuse me, is editing for reason code 31201. Lost my cursor for a second. So you can see them down here in the lower left corner. There's two reason codes, 31201 and 32402. So if you're on this screen, and you hit F1, it will give you an explanation of what that reason code means. But then I can also put my cursor in the first position of a second or a subsequent reason code, press F1, and then it would give me the narrative for the 32402. So once I'm on this reason code description page, we could also go up to the reason code field right here, put our cursor there and type 32402 and hit enter. And that's another way that you can get the description of a second or subsequent reason code. So again, that's a tip for you that you might not find within the DDE manual, but through experience, we know you can do that. And so trying to save you clicks wherever we can. See whether or not, excuse me, this reason code is set to a particular status location. And we'll learn more about status locations in a following session. Next reason code, or excuse me, next function key that we want to talk about is F2. And this is considered your jump function. So it's for line item detail information. If we were on page 2 of our claim, which I have an example here, you can see right here, it says claim page 2 in the top right corner. This is the page that contains the revenue codes and the charges, everything that you're billing Medicare for. So your F2 key will jump to a detail for each line of revenue. Now our example only shows one. It only shows room and board, and it automatically takes you to the first line. But if there were multiple lines of charges on your claim, you could scroll through them on this page by using your F6 key. Remember, I told you that there was all of your options for your program function keys would be listed at the bottom of the screen. See them down here? So it'll give you a clue of what you can do on each screen. So I could F6 through all the different lines of revenue until you get to the one that you're interested in. So let's say if our claim had 10 lines of charges, there were non-covered charges on line 5. I'm just making this up. And you don't know why you didn't bill them non-covered, you can put your cursor on the line number. You can type 5 right here. This is your line number right here. You can type 5 and then press enter, and it would move you to a detail of line 5. Reject or reason codes that are applied at the line level would appear over here. Let me show you. Would be right down here. It says line item reason codes or reason codes and has an arrow, because some reason codes are for the whole claim. It's going to reject maybe the whole claim. And in some instances, it only has a problem with 1 or 2 lines on the claim. Next up is F3. F3 is like your exit or your back button. So we're and pressed F1 to view the reason code narrative earlier. This is that same screenshot from there. So what I could do is press F3 and we could go right back to where we were in our claim. So it takes you back. Now I do want to caution you that if you press 3 more than once, it might take you too far back, and then you might lose any keying or corrections that you were working on your claim. This is also why that if the system, whether it's your connection or DDE itself, is a bit slow, to be patient, because I've been there keying claims. Maybe I'm on like 79 of keying a 250 line outpatient therapy claim, only to lose my work and have to start over. I've been there. It's exasperating. I started with Medicare 29 years ago, and I was a claims examiner, and I keyed paper claims. I keyed lots and lots of paper claims. So you just want to be careful with that. It'll take you back, but you don't want it to take you back too far. So again, practice the pause. F4 is going to take you completely out of DDE, and it's going to terminate your session. So you only want to do that if you're ready to. So a little while ago, I said that DDE explains what function keys are available for use at the bottom of each page. I showed you an example of that. So you'll know what your options are. I want to pause here and just show you that before we move on to the remaining program function keys, again, taking a look at our options down here. You'll notice here where PF2 is, or F2, it has the number 1712. That's a page number. In the top right corner of every page or every screen within DDE, you see a map number. I'll circle it for you. So that's the page number. So where it says down here, PF2 1712, if you press F2, that's the page or the screen it will take you to. Not every screen will have the same choices, depending on where you are. Each screen has a name, and we talked about that, map number. So I'm showing you this screenshot again because it has all of the remaining options that we haven't talked about. F5, 6, all the way through 11. So those are the ones we're going to be talking about now. F5 and F6 are for scrolling within a page. So F5 scrolls up or backward, and F6 scrolls down or forward. F7 and F8 are used to move one page, like within a claim. F7 will take you back a page, and F8 will move you one page forward. F5 and F6 are for scrolling. F7 and F8 are for paging. And don't worry if you don't memorize this or you're frantically trying to write all this down. As you work with DDE, it will come to you. It will become familiar. Now, F9 is a big one in DDE. It's pretty important. F9 is what we used to transmit data. So you might call it update a claim, save a claim, store a claim, all of those different terms. F9 is your save button or your store button. F10 and F11. So where F5 and F6 scrolled forward and backward or up and down, F10 and F11 scroll to the right within a record and left, right and left. Now this option is only available for certain pages or screens, and that's explained in the DDE manual. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a moment. So this slide is just a quick reference or an overview of each of the function keys that we just talked about here. If you're a cheat sheet person or a resource person and you want everything at a glance, that's kind of what this slide is for. So if you want to just print this slide and keep it at your desk, maybe, I'm old school. I'm a Post-it note kind of gal. I'm a cheat sheet quick reference person. So this has helped me as I was learning about DDE. And so I included it if maybe it could help some of you on the line as well. Because as you use DDE, it is going to become easier for you. You'll be accustomed to how to navigate, how to page forward. Now you do notice that we didn't talk about, and there's no label for F12. And it's not that it's not important. It's just that it's not something that's used in the DDE world. It hasn't been since I've been doing it, but I guess it's open for future use. Now, I always like to tell learners where they can go to get more information on topics that we're talking about, no matter what the webinar topic is. Resources are so important because in Medicare, it's not about knowing everything. Frankly, that's impossible because as soon as you figure it out, they're changing the rules or they're moving things or they're updating websites or whatever. So it's more about knowing where to go to get the information you need than trying to memorize it. So this slide gives you links to a couple items that I'm sure that you're going to find very useful. And the very first one is the direct data entry manual. It's on our website. You can get to it from the quick links on our homepage, which is on the right side. You can find it in the claims section of our website. You can get there a number of different ways. Within that DDE manual, there is a section called Movement Within Screens, where you can read more about navigating in DDE, all of the different program function keys that we just looked at. It is a great resource for you. I do suggest you bookmark it. I wouldn't suggest saving it to your desktop or printing it. Number one, it's a lot of pages. And number two, it does get updated. So if you bookmark it, you're always going to be able to go to the most up-to-date version. Now, the second resource that I have listed here is an article on our website, and it's called Direct Data Entry Overview. And this is where you can learn about how to access DDE, you know, what is it? How do I get it? What do I need to do? Because there are certain forms that are required. And we talked about this in a previous session. If you're listening live, it was yesterday. If you're listening to an encore, you can find it in our direct data entry playlist on YouTube. And so it'll tell you what forms are needed to access DDE. It'll show you what network service vendors have been approved by CMS, how to connect to DDE, how to get help with changing passwords, logins, and then also about navigation. So excellent resources for you. Those are going to be kind of like your right hand there. So that brings us to the portion in the presentation where we're going to check in and see what questions you have. I want to reach out to Mary and see if we've gotten any questions in our chat. Mary?
Hi, everyone. Aline, there are no questions in the chat at this time.
Thank you for checking, Mary. I appreciate that so much. And I understand when you're just learning how to do something or learning about something, you're not really sure what questions you have yet. And you will have an opportunity to send in questions, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. I do have some important announcements and other items for you. So I hope you'll stick with us here because these are good to know things too. And actually, if you'll help us pass this information on. And the first one's about overpayments. WPS receives many overpayment notifications and refund requests from providers. We send them out and we expect them back. And we know you want to repay Medicare in a timely manner, but there can be delays if you use an incorrect or an outdated form. Just addressing an envelope to WPS isn't enough. We have multiple departments, we have multiple lines of business, and we want to make sure that we get the information to the right place. If there's missing information or you send a check to us without an explanation as to what it's for, that can be a reason that can cause a delay and perhaps show that a repayment was delinquent when it wasn't. We want to avoid those unnecessary holdups. So consider using our Secure Net Access portal. That's the provider portal that we call SNAP. You may have heard of it before. There are a couple features or functions in there. One is titled refunds and another one is overpayment claim adjustments. And so using this allows fast and efficient processing of your overpayments and refunds to Medicare. And so that is credited to you for responding to that. Now, there are times when you don't have a choice. You're not able to use the portal and you have to send a paper check. If so, we recommend that you double check our website, include the correct form. They should be available for you there. If you're not sure which one you need or which address you need to send it to, contact our customer service area. They can help walk you through that. Mary placed a link to an article on our website to help you determine which action or form to use. Now, this next, it's a provider alert for our Part A providers, and this is a change to mail delivery for Part A appeals. And these are the appeals that were submitted via SNAP prior to June 1st. Correspondence or appeals were submitted within SNAP and those letters were sent paper mail. Effective June 1st, all providers who have an active SNAP account, if you don't, I do recommend you get one. We recommend sending their appeals requests through the portal. With response to those, we're no longer going to be sending out decision letters through the U.S. mail. All appeal letters will be viewed and downloaded directly in SNAP. Providers will also receive an email notification. So that's going to let you know that an appeal decision letter is ready to view in your portal account. And then also you'll be given immediate access to that appeals correspondence from that email. So that's a change we wanted to make sure everybody was aware of. Next up, we have a National ABMAC Ambulance Supplier and Provider Coalition. This is ambulance providers and all MACs across the country who are coming together to analyze errors, talk about education topics. And so we have a webinar coming up later this year. And it's actually open for registration now. And we're including this slide as an advertisement to promote it. It's going to be held virtually. So again, it's a webinar. It'll be on September 16th from 12 to 2 Central Time, which corresponds to 1 to 3 Eastern Time. All MACs are going to present information on current medical review pertaining to ambulance providers. We're going to talk about additional documentation requests. So those requests for documentation to prove medical necessity of ambulance trips. We're going to be talking about the comprehensive error rate testing program, which is a separate review program that CMS has in place. When you register, you do have the opportunity to send questions ahead of time, but we're also going to have a live Q&A session. So if you want to learn more about the coalition, who they are, what they do, we have a page on our website, National ABMAC Ambulance Provider and Supplier Coalition. That's what it's called. So even if this doesn't pertain to you, if you work at a hospital, you don't have an ambulance, you know someone who does probably. So we're just asking you to help share the information. We want to reach as many providers and suppliers as we can to help bring that national paid claim error rate down. Very importantly, please take a few minutes to give us a survey about this course. Tell me what you liked. Tell me what I need to do better for future sessions. Give us suggestions for topics for education. Now, you do have a few options for the survey, depending on what your preference is. You can use the link in the chat. When you close out of the webinar, you're going to receive a screen that's going to look like this top picture here. You're going to be asked to go to an external site, And that external site is the CMS Qualtrics page for the survey. If you click on the continue button, it's just going to open that survey for you. We just want to explain that because sometimes if you haven't taken one of our webinars before, that's a little disconcerting that, okay, where do you want to take me and what do you want to take me to? Because it's not really clear in that verbiage. And unfortunately, we can't change that. So just letting you know. You can also scroll down in the description of the video if you're listening to this course as an encore. But at the end of the encore video, you're also going to see a box that looks like this second or lower box here on your screen with the finger and the stars. And that's going to be a link to the survey as well. However you choose to do that, please just take just a couple minutes. It's just a few questions and let us know your thoughts about our educational offerings. In a few minutes, you're going to be receiving an email to thank you for attending. That's going to be coming in the next 15 or 20 minutes. And we want to let you know about it so that you don't delete it without reading it. Because this email contains your certificate of achievement. It has your name, it has the name of this course, the date that you took it, and it has contact hours. So if you need to turn in contact hours for credit towards continuing education units, you'll be able to do that. Now, again, you'll see that in the next 15 or 20 minutes. And if you don't, check your junk or your spam folder. Make sure to add the WebEx email address to your safe sender list. If you think of a question later, as you think about the information that was presented today and the different ways that you use DDE, if you have a question, you have 1 week from today to submit those follow-up questions. Send them to our Same Education mailbox, put today's date, and something about direct data entry or DDE in your subject line. That way, the person who's watching that mailbox will know that it needs to be sent directly to me. I will compile those and send an answer to whomever had that question. Now, on behalf
Aline?
of myself,
Aline?
yes, Mary.
We did
Yes,
get a couple of questions that came in, and we do have just a couple of moments. So I would like to go ahead and pose them as long as we have time.
absolutely. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you
Thank
for
you to
being
those of you
patient
that had
with me,
questions.
folks. We have a new version of our webinar product, so our chat feature works a little different. So thanks for your patience. I did get some questions, and they were all great questions, so I do want to share them with you, Aline. The first couple of questions really pertain to trainings and more webinars about DDE. Will there be more webinars for the DDE, and will there be a training to show how to correct claims?
That is a great question. Yes, there are a total of 6 webinar sessions in the DDE series that we have developed so far. And there is one that is focused on corrections. We talk about checking claim status. We talk about using the help screen for the different reason codes, how to perform adjustments, corrections, all of that great stuff. So hopefully you'll join us. If you're listening to this course as an encore, look for it in our direct data entry playlist. Great question. Thank you. Do we have any more questions, Mary?
Aline, we do have another question, and the question really pertains to SNAP. You did make an announcement about some changes for Part A redeterminations, but we do have a question, and the question is whether the email for redetermination decisions goes to the group administrator or the person that processed the redetermination or appeal. This isn't really pertaining to exactly what the announcement was about, but I'm not certain if you would know the answer to that or not, since it pertains to SNAP. But I do want to ask you.
I appreciate that. And that's a great question. I'm not sure if that letter would only be by the person who submitted the appeal or anyone on that quote unquote account that has that that provider's information? I will have to find out about that. I don't know right off the top of my head. Great question.
Right, and that's what I would recommend. We can ask one of the subject matter experts on our team that knows more about the functionalities of SNAP, and we'll share that back to everyone then. That's all I have right now. I'm just doing one more check to see if there are any additional questions, and that's all I see, Aline. So thanks so much for all the great information. Back to you.
All right, thank you. That's why I'm so grateful for Mary to be here and monitor that chat, because when I'm sharing the PowerPoint, I can't see what's going on behind the scenes. So invaluable. And thank you so much, everybody, for those questions. If you have additional questions, go ahead and email us, like I said, and send them in, and we'll get answers for you. On behalf of myself, Mary, Shakura, everyone else in provider outreach and education, want to thank you for joining us today to learn more about direct data entry. Watch for those future sessions. They are all on our live events page. If they're not, they will be soon. They will, the remainder will be held later this month, July of 2026, and in August of 2026. So we hope you'll join us for as many as you can. We hope to have you join us for future education. Look forward to your survey comments, and you may now disconnect. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.